All right, so let's start off by defining keto-carnivore. And a pure carnivore diet is just simply eating meat and nothing but meat and nothing else. And I honestly think that most people can't do that. Their body won't like that. But as long as your diet is meat-based, and if you have a plate of food and 25% of it is meat, and then the rest is vegetables, salad, plants, the majority of your calories are from the meat, even though it's only this much on the plate, because it's so calorie dense, energy dense. And that's one of the values of meat, is that it's energy dense. When I spoke at the USDA Dietary Guidelines Committee for 2020, they had a lot of pro-plant people, and they had a few keto people, and like the person from the beef industry, Cattlemen's Association was there. But the very first speaker was a vegan, and he had a comment that how great plants are with all the micronutrients, and they're low energy, and they're full of fiber. And I was like, wait a minute, you just said the major problem is that they're low energy, they're low calorie. So when you go that way eating, you're eating all the time, just like cows and horses, and I got horses across the street from me, and they always have their head down. And they have 4 stomachs, and they can ferment that plant into fats, and then they live off the fats. So when you go, so a lot of people have been talking about ketosis recently, the last 10 to 15 years. There's great research. And the carnivore way of eating sort of got popular 2 years ago when Sean Baker, a medical doctor, was interviewed on Joe Rogan's podcast. And so I myself have gone more meat-based, like 90% of my calories come from meat. And I'll go 4 or 5 days in a row with no plants whatsoever, but then I have a salad. I kind of joke around that I'll get like 1 head of iceberg lettuce per week, because it's my favorite vegetable, but don't tell anybody. Everybody thinks that iceberg lettuce is just green water. No, it's not. It's got nutrients in it. So as people go into eating more meat, some hidden health problems can get uncovered. So during keto-carnivore, and if you can't see this on the video, I will read every single word that's up here. So going keto-carnivore on a patient, and I should do a little intro. So I've been doing hardcore holistic nutrition since 1998. My goal is to get as many people well as cheaply as possible, as fast as possible, as conservatively as possible. Nothing radical like drugs. Nothing radical like surgery. These are extremes. Drugs and surgery are extremes. Whereas food and supplements, that's basic. That's foundational. That's simple. And when you do it right, it's super effective. So through my career, I was low carb beginning in 1999. And I started teaching it to my patients at that time, maybe 2000. And I was eating less than 75 grams of carbs a day up until 2016. And then I went keto. And for me to go keto, at the time I had black mold poisoning. So I had a lot of problem with heart pain. If I ate a ketogenic style diet, like high fat, got into ketosis, my heart would hurt. So I did it 1 day a month of keto. And I mostly did it by just not eating breakfast and then working out in the gym for 3 hours and then running 3 miles. And at the end of the afternoon, I was in ketosis. That's how I did it. But as I detoxed the mold out, then I was able to get more carnivore. I went carnivore 14 months ago, having fantastic results. Personally, my body loves it. And I've always known that I like red meat. And I was afraid of it because I was under the influence of the vegan agenda, which is red meat is bad. And I have a slide that I'll show you later about how ridiculous that is and how easy it is to debunk that with 1 slide. But so as I get some patients going into ketosis, and other ones they go more into carnivore. But during this time, I'm expecting certain things to happen: increased energy, increased muscular strength. And I ask this question a lot: how's your muscles now? Do you feel strong or do you feel weak? Calmness, a calmness on the inside, no more of the speed that is caused by sugar metabolism. A happier heart, so less pounding, less palpitations, less pain. Better sleep, and weight loss, including water. So like swelling around the ankles or fingers or waist. lower lipids. So when it comes to a blood test, VLDL going down, triglycerides going down. Now LDL may go up, total cholesterol may go up, HDL should go up, but these are the two main ones I'm looking at. So when VLDL is going down, I'm good with that, even though total cholesterol might be higher. Okay, and then sugar tests, glucose, A1C, obviously those are going to be going down. So that's what I expect, but that doesn't always happen. So regarding symptoms, before I get to the symptoms, if the VLDL goes up or something's weird with the lipids, I know what the problem is. It's statin drugs. It's always the statin drugs that mess up the lipids, right? Because you want the LDL to go up in the correct relationship with the total cholesterol and in the correct relationship with HDL. Okay, so in relationship to each other, they should all be, that equals a lower VLDL less than 19. So I have people on statin drugs, their doctor forces it on them, and they're going into ketosis, they have low cholesterol, they have low LDL, yet their VLDL is 30 or 40 because they're on a statin drug, and it artificially messes things up. Okay. Now, if somebody's blood glucose or A1C is not working right, if it's not coming down, they're eating keto, they're eating carnivore, the main problem is usually some sort of an autoimmune situation against their pancreas. And there's a couple blood tests for that. All right, so regarding symptoms, let's say somebody gets poor sleep in ketosis or carnivore, and their mind is racing, or they feel jittery on the inside, or they have this increased energy during the day, during the night. I actually experienced that myself back in I used to live downtown in an apartment. I lived there for 7 years, so we're talking maybe 2005, around there. I went really low carb for a week. And I remember it was a Friday night or Saturday night, I'm pacing, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm pacing in my living room. I was like, okay, I'm done with this experiment for now. So the next day I bought a 5-pound bag of potatoes and I ate that the next day. All right, so I've experienced this where my sleep was bad going keto and eating more meat back in 05. And if you get muscular weakness, then you're losing your minerals. And cramping constipation could be from losing your minerals. And the fatigue from losing your minerals. People call this keto flu. And so I brought some examples of minerals. I'll get to that in a second. And more anxiety, same thing. So you want to calm all your body down and your muscles, okay? And what happens is you have a high insulin, high sugar, standard American diet. You go keto, carnivore, your insulin goes down, your body dumps a bunch of fluid. That's the initial weight loss. That's the swelling in your fingers that goes away. That's the swelling in the ankles. That's this. And within 1 week, I have many people where they're down like a belt notch, or they just feel tighter in here, and they feel better. And they had 3 days of excess urination. I had a guy a few weeks ago, he lost 2 pounds overnight. He'd been on the carnivore diet, which was very helpful. It got rid of a whole bunch of fluid retention in his legs, and I put him on a supplement when he was here, and it helped his kidneys out. But yeah, we want to get rid of the excess water. And but another symptom that some people could have is no weight loss. All right, so let's break these down. Let's first talk about adding minerals. That's where you want to start. Now, I do want to qualify, the last one isn't that's avocados and celery. Those are high mineral foods. Organic celery should be very salty. Commercial celery is not very salty. So celery should be salty. And then the avocados have a lot of potassium, more than bananas. And avocados are filled with fat, so they're very keto. So you can just adapt your diet to compensate for the lack of minerals. That's a good place to start. And then extra salt. So here's Celtic sea salt. It could be Himalayan rock salt, the pink salt. That'll work. 2 teaspoons a day. So have people put it in a shot glass with water, shoot it, and then chase it with water. And when the first time you do it, you might throw it up. Because you're your body's like, what the heck did you just do? So you run to the bathroom, you say, okay, I think I'll be fine. I've had a few people do that. So you might want to start off with just 1 teaspoon. And it's perfectly healthy to do that, and it's not excess salt. It's not too much salt. there are some traditional tribes that would have 100 milligrams, is that right? Milligrams or grams? Grams. 100 milligrams of salt per day, 100 grams of salt per day, whereas 2 teaspoons is 8 grams, right? So if some tribe lived by the ocean and they're eating salty fish and seaweed, they're getting a lot of salt, perfectly healthy. This is a magnesium powder, OptiMag Neuro. This is a fantastic supplement. It's got a super awesome form of magnesium called theanine, and that goes into the brain. And threonate in this version. So excess magnesium with a little scooper, maybe 2 or 3 scoops a day to get the minerals in. And then potassium powder. So by law, potassium capsule can only have 99 milligrams, but if you get the powder, 1 scoop of this is like, it's almost 5 grams. So 1,200 milligrams of potassium. And this has a little bit of magnesium in it, 120 milligrams. So this fixes most of these problems for a lot of people. So we're talking about so these are very calming minerals. Magnesium, calcium is very calming. We have a calcium powder. So all these minerals are very calming. What mineral is not calming? Phosphorus. So in Kentucky, they raise racehorses. And in Wisconsin, they raise cows. Why don't they do it the other way around? How come they don't raise racehorses in Wisconsin? Well, in Kentucky, there's more phosphorus in the ground. And in Wisconsin, there's more calcium. So the lazy, fat cows love the calcium, and the hyper muscular racehorses need the phosphorus. Got that? It's in the ground that way. Okay. So now if the minerals don't work, then what's going on? So there's something blocking your progress. Maybe it's an organ dysfunction, like gallbladder or stomach. Okay? Or it could be a medication that's causing symptoms, like statins and antidepressants prevent weight loss. I also threw in stress can prevent weight loss. All right, so there are other factors that can cause problems with progress when you go on more of a meat-based diet. Okay, so and that's what I do in the office. I do the biofeedback muscle testing procedure to find out, like, is there an organ that needs help? And a lot of times the gallbladder needs help, and it could be the stomach's not making enough hydrochloric acid. You don't have enough enzymes from your pancreas. Your gallbladder is stuck. It's not pumping out bile. And all of these things, when they're dysfunctional, or maybe just one, can cause constipation, or it can cause lack of digestion. And then when you fix it correctly, the pH is correct. At the stomach, you want low pH here, and then it goes up, becomes more alkaline soon in the small intestine. And there's different parts of the intestine that need different pHs. So that's more of a clinical biochemical thing, but I help people get through their keto-carnivore experience. Now, that patient, I'm going to tell you about her right now. So she started with me earlier in the summer, and she wanted to lose weight, and she had some symptoms that she wanted to get rid of. And I had her track her macronutrients in chronometer, and we're looking at her fat, protein, and carbs, and I had her drop her carbs down a lot, and then she dropped her fat down, and her protein stayed high. And she was very distraught over this because her body was fighting her and did not like it at all. And but yeah, like, so she's in her mid-60s or late 60s, and if you're eating the same food, if somebody was feeding you the same food for 67 years and took that away, you would be unhappy too, right? So that's what she's training her body. Her body's like a little puppy, and you got to be gentle with it and not be too harsh on it. And what happened was, I remember her basically yelling at me and how bad she felt, and she's like kind of yelling at the floor instead of looking at me in the face. But she went away for 2 months, and I just saw her this week, and now she's happy. It's wild, the difference, because she just had to go home and like straighten out her diet, because I was trying to help her, I was trying to hold her hand through this whole process. She got the basics of what she needed to do, and then she experimented with her diet for 2 months, and then when she came back to see me, she's happy. She looked so much better, and she's losing weight. Now, when she was with me in the summertime, she initially lost weight, but at that time she got a whole bunch of symptoms that appeared, so she went back on higher carbs. Those symptoms went away, but then she gained the weight back. All right, but we talked about the minerals. We talked about I put her on supplements, and then I'm thinking about her like 6 weeks later, like, where is she? I haven't seen her in a long time, and then suddenly she appears this week, and then she's doing really good. So there's a lot of experiment that you have to do, and people ask me questions like, can I eat bananas? Can I eat pork chops? What about sausage? What about butter? What about water? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, you need to figure this out. I am not your God. I'm not God. I can't answer this. Take that food in your body and watch what happens in your body, right? And remember, you're not your body. You are not your body. You're a being that's inhabiting this for a period of time, and you have to control this body. Don't let this body control you. Got that? So you eat a whole bunch of, I don't know, sausages at lunch and then see what happens. Right? Cool? All right. And then you should be able to go, I just talked to somebody today, he's down 5 pounds, which is great, over it's been 6 weeks. And a lot of things, he's like 40% better overall with all of his symptoms. I put him on some supplements. And he's eating low carb, and he's eating low fat, but he's cranky, and he can only go 3 hours between meals. So I said, how much red meat are you eating? He goes, oh, I don't eat red meat. I eat chicken and fish. Okay, great. But he doesn't eat the skin on the chicken. I said, eat the skin on the chicken, and if you need to put butter on the chicken or butter on the fish, do that. Add oil so you can go 6 hours between meals. Because at noon he eats his lunch, and at 3 o'clock he's hungry again. You don't want that to happen. That means you're eating the wrong sort of food for yourself. So he needed to increase his fat. Okay, so these are the various things that I'm looking for. And like, if you're never a patient of mine, if you're watching me on video, this is where you start to experiment. Like, do you have gallbladder dysfunction? Just go online, search for gallbladder supplements. Stomach dysfunction, there's all kinds of enzymes and hydrochloric acid you could try. Also too, there's a little known secret about the pituitary. This controls your stomach and your pancreas and your liver for digestion. So there's not that many pituitary supplements on the market. I have one that's absolutely fantastic. And then when it comes to medications, you got to talk to your MD about that. But there's a website called askapatient.com. But just look up the side effects of your medication to see if they're preventing weight loss or making you feel bad in some way. But askapatient.com is people who took the medications and then they rate it. Ask a patient. Right, so when you look up statin drugs here, a lot of people have cramping from statin drugs. Their muscles are sore. But if you ask the pharmaceutical companies, do people get cramping from statin drugs? They say, yeah, maybe 2%. No, it's like 70%. Okay. So I call this fun stuff. What's living in your body disrupting function? So when I went more keto, like I said, my heart hurt, and I also had a poor appetite. And there was a time in 2016 I didn't eat red meat for 6 months. And if I didn't know any better, I would blame the red meat. So there's many people who don't eat red meat because it harms their body, but it's not the red meat. It's the fungus, or the parasites, or the metals, or the virus, or Lyme. All these organisms, we can't ignore these things, but medicine does. It's so sad. Medicine ignores these things, and these are major drivers of chronic illness and food allergies. Okay? At the seminar, I just went to a seminar this past weekend. The guy that led the seminar or one of the guys that led the seminar, he had Lyme, and his energy was devastated. This was many years ago, and he started making his own products, and he started taking them, and he got so much healthier that he went to a restaurant called Smash Burger, which is out there, out west, but not here. And he had a milkshake. He had a big milkshake, and he drank the whole thing. And he had no reaction whatsoever. Whereas before that, he was allergic to dairy. So a lot of food allergies just come from organ dysfunction and from bugs like this, over and over and over again. Even in the 1950s, one of my mentors, Dr. Roy Lee, said that food allergies are lactic acidosis. What he's saying is food allergies are organ dysfunction. Okay? Yeah, question?
When you say Lyme drives itself into your joints, you mean the mineral Lyme, or is it like Lyme disease?
Lyme disease, Borrelia, it doesn't like to be in the blood. It goes into the joints and it goes into the nervous system. So it causes like foggy brain. So when you do a blood test for Lyme, usually most Lyme tests, like standard blood tests, aren't good because it's not in the blood. It's in the joints or it's in the nervous system. Okay, so we do the muscle testing procedure to find these things and get good results that way. Okay, let's talk about heavy metals and radioactive elements. So these are problems that unrelated to diet. Diet doesn't fix everything, right? These are things that we have in our bodies, we're consuming, that cause major harm and make people crash, and then they try the vegan diet, then they try the carnivore diet, then they try the Whole30 diet, then they're going through all these diets, and nobody's teaching them about getting these bugs fixed and these toxins out, and it should be the biggest challenge for medicine, but it's kind of still being ignored. All right, I'm going to show you some maps, but let's talk about radium, lead, and agricultural chemical runoff. So half of Americans are drinking radium. Radium is 3,000 times worse than uranium. It's in the tap water of half of America in levels beyond into the danger zone. Radium is a byproduct of uranium. So you have like 2,000 nuclear bombs, atomic bombs have been exploded since World War II. That's one of the sources. And then 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, that kind of stuff, that's the other source. And then it's naturally occurring under the ground for some people. My old house I lived in got radon tested, and it was high for radon. So radon is the gas that is the effect from radium. So we had to shunt the air from under the house out the side of the house. So radon, it comes from radium. And I'll show you a map here in a second. And then lead, 15 to 22 million Americans drink lead from their lead-based service lines. And people talk about Flint. Sure, Flint, Michigan, but there's like, 2,000 municipalities and water supplies? That's worse than Flint. Okay, and then so you got to get a really good filter. Agricultural runoff in almost all 50 states. So let me show you some. So here's a map of the United States with all the blue dots are a newspaper article talking about in that locality there's agricultural runoff in the tap water in high amounts that's dangerous for the people drinking the tap water. So there's that. And then here we have radium. So let me blow this up. So when you look at this map, the white like this is okay. So I can click on a white dot. Let's just see if I can grab this one. City of Midland, Texas has 0.76 picocuries per liter of water, and it's below 1.0, so that's okay. Ideally it'd be 0, right? And then we can click on, let's see if I can grab this red one. I mean, I can blow it up, but Frontenac, city of Frontenac in Kansas. So they're above 1.0. They're at 5.3 picocuries per liter. And then that's red. And then in the orange, like right here, city of Olathe, Kansas. They're above 1.0, so again, this is dangerous. All right, so 170 million Americans are drinking quantities of radium above 1.0 picocuries per liter. I guess Indiana doesn't test because they don't have that many. And then right here in Wisconsin, there seems to be a lot of red. 80% of Texas has too much radium in their water. 80%. And then in Wisconsin, there's a radium belt that's underneath the ground. It's kind of like this. And this just so happens that this is also a lime belt. So when you're drinking radium, it's like drinking a hot coal, and it's always emitting fire into your body. So the radium is pumping out electrons that breaks through your cells, damages your DNA. It burns you, is what it does, with a half-life of what? Was it 4 billion years? I don't know. The half-life is longer than what you can live. But the point is, like, why is it that the radium belt is the same as lime? Because they're drinking radium, and that weakens their immune system. So then they get infections, including Lyme, etc., and it destroys their immune system. So Ann Arbor is too high. We're in Ann Arbor right now. 2.0 instead of, it should be less than 1.0. See that? All right. So there's that. So this is like, these are heavy metals. And when's the last time you had a medical doctor say, do you have radium in your body? There's no test for this. And so one of the companies, the company that I went to this past weekend, Cellcore Biosciences, they're looking at investing $1 million into a lab, and they're going to try to test radium. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Can you delete that one? I'm just kidding. But the government can test radium, but there's not a civilian like lab that'll do this. Boy, I shouldn't have said that. Okay. Who knows? Okay. So, yeah, these are major public health problems, and in the meantime, our public health officials are telling us to avoid animal fats and animal proteins, and that's like completely ridiculous and backwards. So back to this. And I just put this in here right with this one. I'm gonna hit play. With this one graph, I'm showing you that the U.S. animal fat consumption between 1915, actually 1900 to here. Look at the animal fat consumption, how much it's dropped. And you compare that to heart disease, it's going up like that. And PUFA, what is PUFA? PUFA is plant oils. So there. Animal fat is not bad for you in one graph. This debunks thousands and thousands of observational studies. Observational studies are not science. Those are surveys. And you all know how surveys can be wrong, because we remember how November of 2016 turned out with the surveys. And then we had the election, and something was off. Okay. All right. So there's that. So I went through that. Okay, so I'm going to show you, where are we at? We're at 35 minutes, 30 minutes in. How about they turn that off? Okay. Here's a graph that I did a video on this yesterday, and I got this paper version. If you wanted to if you wanted to pass it around. So the point here is we have in the blue, up there and down here, we have mitochondrial function. And there's 3,000 to 10,000 mitochondria in every single cell. And the brain has like 10 to 15,000. And at the end of this mitochondrial energy production, you end up right here. This and this are the same thing. This just shows hydrogen going in, and then it spins, and it kicks out ATP. ATP is energy. All right, so you got all these steps to make ATP. This is called ATP synthase. It spins at 9,000 RPMs. every minute it kicks out 9,000 ATP. So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Phosphate is energy, so imagine phosphorus. And there's different kinds of phosphorus. There's red, there's white, you can Google this. I think it's red phosphorus. When you have it in your hand, when it's exposed to oxygen, it burns. Pho means light, phos means light from within. So inside that pile of phosphorus, it'll glow. And they make napalm from phosphorus. And the word pharaoh means light, right? So if you want energy, you want light, your body has to make ATP. And so it dumps the ATP into the cell from the mitochondria, and the cell uses that. But you want to make enough ATP that it's abundant, and it goes from the cell outside into the body. And the ATP powers the immune system and directs the immune system. If you're not making enough ATP, the immune system doesn't get enough energy. It's not being directed. Now you have a weak immune system. And then the Lyme and the parasites and the fungus can thrive. So people with chronic immune problems or chronically reactive problems, they're not making enough ATP. And people take killers, they take oregano, they take wormwood, they take berberine, antimicrobials, and they still have problems because they don't have enough energy. And then they feel it, right? They're tired all the time. And they wake up tired. And so this is where most of the time, a lot of times, when people go keto and they're eating more meat, then their energy comes up and they're sleeping better, they wake up in the morning, they feel better, and their immune system is stronger, their LDL goes up, which is very antiviral, and now they don't get colds anymore, whereas plant-based people get more colds. That's known, that's a study. And what's one of the main sources of phosphorus is meat. Meat is very high in phosphorus. So this is one of the reasons why meat is very important. And the other thing is, in order to drive fat and nutrients into the mitochondria, you need CoQ10 and you need carnitine, and those are found in meat in high amounts. All right, so that's good stuff about meat. All right, I'll show you another graph, another document that's related to this. And I've used this over and over again. And see that? This is like Chutes and Ladders, that game. When you're, right, it's super easy. It's really easy. All right. But this is glycolysis right here, this pink part, that's burning sugar. And then here's the mitochondria, the yellow is mitochondria right here. And then this is the Krebs cycle. Just, not that you know what Krebs cycle is, but just hear me out. Krebs cycle here, electron transport chain here, and this is the ATP synthase right here. All right, getting back to this one. This is glycolysis here, glucose to pyruvate. This is the Krebs cycle here. Here's the electron transport chain here, and then this is the ATP synthase. That just went. Did that just go duller? It wasn't so bright. Okay. All right. Okay, so anyway, so down here we got ATP. I'm sorry, it went duller. I don't know what happened with that. All right, so this thing rotates right there. It spins. And when I took a class, online class from a physicist named Nassim Haramein, and he unified all the physics. There's classical physics, there's quantum physics, there's astrophysics, there's all that, quantum mechanics. He unified all that. And the way he did it was he realized there's one common denominator, and that's the field. That's the energy that's around every object. Or it's the field that's, there's a center point, and it spins. And 96% of the forces of the universe is spin. So you got the earth spinning around the sun, and you have your ear spins, and your hand spins, okay? And you can look at a flower, and there's like a rotation that goes on with the petals. You can see so anyways, it's just cool that that thing spins. And so the ATP gets dumped, the phosphate leaves, and then energy leaves. That's the endergonic reaction. Then you got the ADP, and it goes back in, and it gets a phosphate reattached to it. All right, cool. So I'm done showing you this. Any questions on this? So so it's important to know this because, like, if you're not using this yellow stuff right here, you're dying.